Hi, I'm Dr. Leaf, and you're listening to my podcast, Cleaning Up the Mental Mess. For today's podcast, I'm airing an interview I recently did and really enjoyed on my good friend Kimberley Snyder's podcast. It's one of my favorite interviews, and we really get deep into how to heal your mind by changing toxic thoughts. And before we begin, you can get even more bonus ad-free content from me when you subscribe to my Patreon. This month's bonus episode is the full video recording from my 2021 mental health retreat on a talk I did on how to reduce chronic and acute anxiety using the neurocycle. Now, on to today's episode.
So Dr. Leaf, it's so wonderful to have you on the show today. I've been a big fan of your work for a while. And so, wow, here we are speaking. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you, Kimberley. It's great to meet you. I'm a fan of your stuff too. So wonderful that we can connect like this.
So I actually saw I was reading on your website, doctor, that you're born in Zimbabwe, which is a country I actually traveled through quite a bit when I was backpacking in Africa. So I camped all across Zimbabwe.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. When was that? Was that quite recently?
This was back in, I think, and I'm terrible with years, I think it was 2006.
Wow. So that even then when things are still unstable, that's not the safest country to backpack in. But it's beautiful. But it's a beautiful country.
It was, I know there's been a lot of, instability over the years, but the land is beautiful. And I have to say the people.
Oh, they're amazing.
Amazing, big hearts, so connected.
Yeah.
And open and loving and,
very
one of my favorite countries.
It is. It's a beautiful country. We unfortunately left when I was very, very young. When there was so many years of problems there. So I grew up in South Africa. And I've only been back to visit once. But I got to get back there. So that's lovely. You've been there. Wonderful.
So, there's so many questions I have for you, Dr. Leaf. I'm really fascinated about your work, especially with memory. And, one of the things that, just speaking personally, I wonder, I've asked this question before to some different scientists, and I know we have different, aspects of research and different ways of approaching this, but I think all of us have these painful memories, growing up. Ways that, how we define trauma, things that make us feel small or not good enough. And then I feel like we spend our whole lives trying to reframe things and trying to overcome some of these memories. So I guess my first question, Dr. Leaf, is it possible to really change our memories, or are we just, do we just have to find tools to cope with some memories that are painful and detrimental, perhaps, to our sense of self or self-esteem?
Excellent question. The most basic answer to that is absolutely we can change. We can't change what's happened to us, but we can change what's in us and how it plays out into our future. We have control over that. And that's been my life's work, is to understand how we got the memory into our mind, brain, and body in the first place, and what that process is. And then can we reverse that process and change it and change how we play out into the future? So that's been 4 decades of research in that field, working with a multitude of different types of patients who've battled with things like traumatic brain injury and dementias and autism and severe trauma from whatever. And then just being a human. It's not just people that are battling with extreme situations, but just being a human and being alive. As you quite rightly said, just being alive. You can't not have, you can have the greatest parents and still have trauma memories because, what happens at school, and, our parents come to the party with their issues, and that is going to play out in their parenting. So regardless how well-intentioned we can be as a parent, and I'm a parent of 4 kids, you can be as well-intentioned and say, I'll never do what my parents did, but you'll do your own set of things. And you'll do some of what they did because it passes through epigenetically until you've actually solved that in your life. So yes, absolutely we can. And the way, Kimberley, to do that is to understand what a memory is. And there's so much psychology. I hate to use the word, but I don't know of a better word. There's so much psychobabble in this world and social media is just so full of so much advice, which is fantastic, but it can be very, very overwhelming. And there's a lot of words thrown out by psychologists that can be very confusing for people. So what I've tried to do is to try and demystify a lot of those and use very basic terms to help people, because I don't want you to have to be reliant on me as a therapist to help yourself. I want you to be empowered to help yourself. So my work has been around understanding memory, mind, thoughts, etc., emotions, what they are, demystifying all the psychobabble and the neuroscience, and making it very simple for people so that you can change how those memories play out into your future.
And I know you have so many different resources for us, including all your wonderful books. If you could just give us like a basic understanding of, you mentioned mind, brain, emotions, feelings, and there's this babble. And sometimes we don't know what to believe inside of us. Our minds are saying, and I can speak from personal experience. I wouldn't have used the term neglect. I wouldn't have used the term trauma, Dr. Leaf, years ago. But now I think, my parents were really, they did their best. They loved me.
Mm-hmm.
They were working a lot. So there was a level of being left on my own a lot, a level of, we use the word neglect just, emotionally in many different ways. So I kind of had to cope, and I had to find ways to feel that validation and feel that love. So sometimes now as an adult, as I go deeper into my own self-awareness, sometimes I think it's hard for all of us. Is this a trigger? Is this truth? Is this a memory playing out? Is this an authentic feeling? It gets confusing sometimes when we're really trying to find the path of the voice of what to follow.
I love that you said that, Kimberly, and it is because I get interviewed by so many people and I interview so many people, and in the field, I read so many articles and I write science articles, and that confusion of the terminology is key in, I think, keeping people stuck, because we don't quite know what we're dealing with. And as you say, it's like emotions, feelings, thought, whatever. So we need to define those. So maybe that's where I can start, is to try and simplify and give people, I've got a lot of visuals and props and things that make it very easy to understand. And in my books and my app, the Neurocycle app, which is like literally me giving you therapy, I go into the whole process. So let's start with understanding the difference between mind and brain and body, because it's three different things, and the relationship. And then what is memory and how does it form? That's probably, then that relates to what we're talking about. Okay, so I've got the first prop I've got is a brain. So if those of you that are listening, it's not a real brain, it's a brain and it's a prop. But basically, I show this because there's been so much emphasis on the brain in the last 40 years, which is fantastic. My whole career has been one of understanding more and more about the brain. But we've got so obsessed with the brain that we've become neuro-reductionistic. So everything's been about the brain, and the word mind has been subsumed into the brain as though it's a synonym. So people use mind and brain as though it's the same thing, and they are worlds apart. And they are so different. And seeing them as the same thing is locking a lot of people into feeling like they can't change. And a lot of the confusion, because if we're confused and we're not sure what we're dealing with, how do you change it? Because you don't know what to change. You don't, as you said, is it a memory? Is it a feeling? What is that? So the brain is a physical structure. It's very complicated and complex, and we're learning more and more all the time. But your brain can do nothing without your mind. And your brain is part of your body. So here's another model. There's your brain in your body. So the brain and the body are physical. We can touch, we can see, we can feel, we can measure. But if you did, they're doing nothing. So we are alive, we're talking, and if I put different types of technology on us, we would see massive brain responses, and we would see blood flow, and we would see electromagnetic flow, and EKG in our heart, a QEEG in our brain. But a dead person, we wouldn't see any of that energy. We wouldn't see any responses. So what is the difference between the dead physical body and the alive physical body like you and I? It's the mind. So the mind is this powerful force that gives aliveness to the brain and the body. You and I can have this conversation because of our mind. So our mind is a third part, but it needs the brain and the body. So if you think of the mind as almost like a cloud that is over and around and through the body. And when someone's dead, that goes. People actually weigh less when they die. There's a fraction of a weight, it's 2-point-something pounds that you weigh less when you die.
Wow.
And there's a shift. And suddenly when someone dies, none of the functionality of an alive person is there anymore. So nothing's working. As we're alive now, we're making up to 1 million cells every second, which is phenomenal. We're actually making 11 million cells. Our blood's flowing, our hormones are doing this, and there's a whole millions of things going on in our brain and our body. None of that's happening in a dead person. So we know that aliveness is creating an energetic force inside the brain and the body, and the brain and the body are switched on to do stuff. So with that in mind, what does our mind then do besides driving the functionality of the brain and the body? It also helps us to experience life. So it's our mind that is enabling us to have this conversation. So psychologically, our mind is our ability to think and feel and choose. So that's what you do now while you listen to me and while everyone's listening to me. You're thinking about what I'm saying, And how did you get it in the first place? Because I'm sending sound waves at you. So your mind is grabbing those sound waves and electromagnetic light waves, and it's creating a whole gravitational field force that's coming at you. And your mind, that's the sort of physics side. Then as all that physics stuff is translated into the psychology of you thinking about what I'm saying, it's making you feel certain things, and you're making choices. So you're in this think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose mind in action cycle at about 400 billion actions per second to process what I'm saying. So
Wow.
mind is this thing that is think, feel, choose at 400 billion actions per second with all these waves of gravitational fields, and all of that chips goes into the brain and shows up in the brain and the body. And it shows up as changes in the brain and the body, changes in the actual structure of the brain, changes in the neurochemistry, changes in the actual every cell of the body, the cytoskeleton which holds the cell together. That changes, the DNA changes. So everything that I'm telling you now is changing you completely. And that happens every moment of every day. So while we're awake, we take in the world through our mind into our brain and our body, and we change our brain and our body. And then that combination enables us to then communicate. So all of that's learning going into our brain and our body and our mind. And then we use that combination of mind, brain, and body to talk. So as I'm talking now, I am talking from years of studying the mind, brain, body connection, being working with patients, etc. That's all gone into my mind, brain, and body. And I've built networks in my brain and my body and my mind of this knowledge. And I'm combining all of that and I'm speaking. So I'm not speaking from fresh air, I'm speaking from my experience. And now come to the childhood experience, the neglect. Your parents were busy. They weren't, they loved you, they knew you loved them, but you didn't get the time that you need. So at critical points in your day-to-day development, whatever, you didn't get. So there were experiences that were then toxic. So you would have had, so here's a healthy thought. Let me show you this.
I like that, Prof.
There you go. There's a healthy thought, because that's what we build into our brain. And I'll explain that in a minute, but this would be an unhealthy experience. Okay. So that experience of, I need my mom, I'm back from school, I got this thing that happened, and where's my mom to share? And it's not her fault, she had to work, but that you needed that in that moment. So there, your experience of you couldn't process properly, maybe I'm just making something up, that happened at school. And so that's in your brain, but now it's in toxically. It's not going to go in like that. It's gone in like that. And because you didn't have your parent there to maybe help you work it out in the moment, this then became sort of solid little toxic thing that then pushed down, and then you went on with your daily life and you saw your parents, and the next day maybe something happened the next week, and it kept adding to this, and then you go into adulthood, and those little things that were never resolved became big things. And
Dr. Leaf, sorry to interrupt you, but when you're saying it becomes a thing you push down, it's an actual physical sort of.
It's a thing. Cell. It's a thing. Yes,
so it's like you can see it in a microscope. Like it's actually you can see. Wow.
Let's see. So now let's back. So thank you for asking that. Okay, so our conversation. Let me track it to this, and then we'll come back to the childhood. As I'm speaking, I'm sending out sound waves and light waves. That's real. That's physical. We've got physics to explain that, quantum physics, gravitational fields, etc. You have a gravitational field around you and in you, and that it's all electromagnetics and everything. It's all, and I can't take yours, you can't take mine. It's unique to you. It matches your brain. Your brain is designed to match that, and your body. So that's why when people have transplants, you get memories from other people, because the experience that your mind is taking in goes into the brain as this energy field. And here's the brain and the body. It goes into the brain, and then the brain responds electromagnetically, chemically, quantum level, and genetically. And that combination makes proteins, makes amino acids, which make proteins. And those proteins grow together and to form branches. And in protein, those proteins form little in what we call a microtubule. They form structures. They form little branches. It's the easiest to visualize it.
Yes.
So what we're saying is growing branches inside your brain. We've just started speaking, so this is how big it is. Okay, so we haven't said that much. But everything I've said has now gone into your brain, and the little branches are the data. And those branches are made of lots of proteins. And in every protein, is the content of what I'm saying is a vibration that is, it's got different fields, positive and negative, all the sciencey stuff. That's there inside a physical protein. The little leaves are the emotions that you're feeling. So mind is think, feel, choose. So the think, feel, choose gets stored into the structure. the think part and is the data. So that's on the branches, and the feel part's the leaves, because that's the emotion. So that's the branches are the data information, which are actually the memories, and the leaves are the emotional memories. So this is the content of what I'm saying, the little branches. So that's the informational memory in these proteins, actual physical structure that you can see in your brain. And the leaves are the emotions that are emotional memories that are being generated as I'm speaking to you. I'm sure it will come as no surprise to you that to think well and manage your mental health, your brain needs proper nourishment. But many of us don't have the time to take multiple different products all day long for better brain and body health, more energy and optimized immune systems. This is why I love Athletic Greens. It has just what I need in one drink. Best of all, it doesn't taste like it's super healthy, honestly. Athletic Greens has a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning when I wake up. Even my husband, who can't stand things that taste too green, loves his Athletic Greens in the morning. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your brain, your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/leaf. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/leaf to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. The link and offer details will be in the show notes.
I mean, imagine if we think about how many thoughts we have. It's all in there, because sometimes
it's all in your brain. It's all in your brain.
All of it. Every imprint, every thought is still in our brain.
It's still in your brain. And then if you haven't changed it, it's in the original format. So here's the beauty. You can change it. And that's what you asked me in the beginning. So that's a thought. See, the thought's the product of the mind. The mind is think, feel, choose, and all that physics stuff. And the product is a thought. The thought is made of memories. Now, your first question was, you've got memories from childhood. And you said plural, memories. And those memories are clustered into thoughts. So they're categorized into thoughts. So this would be maybe the school incident. And then there'd be another one that's maybe the fight with the sibling. And then there's another one that's scary, some scary doctor visit or whatever. Every little cluster. When it first happens, it's small. And then the more, whatever you think about, the most grows. So if you never had anything more added, it would stay small. But if more is added, it grows. So as I'm talking, this is growing because I'm giving more information. By the end of the conversation, we're probably going to look at something as big as this, because I would have spoken for a significant amount of time. So I'm giving a lot of data. And so the branches are the memory. The whole thing is the thought. So thought's not the same as a memory. So we think and feel and choose to build a thought with our thoughts, feelings, with our thinking, feeling, and emotion inside of it. So the thought is a physical product that we can see inside the brain. And it's the result of thinking, feeling, and choosing. And the more we think, feel, choose, the more stuff we grow into the thought. And over time, it just gets bigger and bigger if we keep feeding it. If we don't, it just stays small. And also, if you only feed it for 24 hours or 48 hours, it'll just disintegrate. It takes 63 days to stabilize this. So for this to stay there, it's got to have repeated. It's got to have at least 9 weeks of repetition. So if your mother wasn't there for 9 weeks in a row, this would be stabilized. Even if it was only a small bit of information and didn't add more to just one incident, if it happened 9 weeks in a row, it becomes stabilized. Now we don't think in terms of 9 weeks, but that's what's happening. The neural pathways become stabilized. But now on top of that, that's in the brain. That's inside the brain. As soon as this is happening now, what we're talking about, it also goes in every cell of the body. So the memory inside thought tree, so the thought tree holds the memories, also go into every cell of the body. And we have 37 to 100 trillion cells in our brain and our body. So now I'm talking to you and you're growing the tree, you your mind is also building a change in every cell of your body. So your mind's doing brain work and it's doing body work. It's embodying in the mind. So the mind is showing up in the brain and the body. And then every cell, you've seen what cells look like, little funny looking things, and they've got lots of stuff inside them. You have something that's like a skeleton of our body. We have a skeleton in the cells. And in that skeleton, it's a similar skeleton in the cells of the body as to inside the brain. So this is also kind of like, these are little skeletons. And then the information goes in protein format, vibrations inside proteins in the skeleton. I know it's complicated, but
this is amazing, Dr. Lee. Let's pause for a second because I have a couple of questions there before we go on. First of all, this is fascinating. And what I focus on a lot is Vedic philosophy and yogic philosophy, which is really about don't get so influenced by the ego, by the senses going out because you're pulled in a million different directions. So we meditate to concentrate our energy in what's called the Sushumna Nadi, the main energy channel in here. So imagine your research shows that, when we are constantly, I don't know if you've measured overreactivity, but the nervous system constantly being influenced, social media is coming in, all this is going out. As you're saying, it can just lead to detrimental shifts. So many thoughts, detrimental shifts in our body, what we're seeing with the impacts of inflammation and stress and so on.
Absolutely. So that's what I've directly shown in my body. So when you talk, I do yoga, I do hot yoga, I absolutely love it. It's such an important part of just helping us to learn to understand our bodies, to get into the cellular state of to understand the embodiment of memory. So when you talk about that internal energy and blocking off the external, learning how to just focus in on the moment, that's an element of mind management. So what you're doing is in that hour or whatever that they're doing, the person's doing yoga, you're shifting off the senses and you're teaching the person to tune into how your body feels in that moment, which is an excellent exercise to train ourselves to become less distractible and to tune in to our inner wisdom, which is inside our brain and our body and our mind, 3 places. So we are actually made of wisdom. We're literally wired for love. Every cell of our brain and our body is designed for being able to manage the messiness of life and repair and grow from it. And that's wisdom. Wisdom is, okay, this has happened. What do I learn? How do I grow? And
how do I let go too?
How do I let go? How do I move on? How do I reconceptualize? All that stuff. Now that is what we're made of. We're made of, psychologically, we understand it as doing that, but it's also in our body. So when you go into doing something like yoga, you're accessing your body wisdom. You're accessing the cytoskeleton of your cells and the energy that's flowing through them and the memories that are stored in there. And whenever it's toxic, it's going to create brain damage. So this tree looks different to this tree because these proteins are folded correctly with the correct electrical chemical balance and quantum balance, and there's no inflammation. The proteins are folded incorrectly. The vibrations are incorrect. The energy is incorrect. The chemical balance is incorrect. There is too much inflammation. Inflammation is good for us, but only for periods of time. But when the inflammation stays there for longer periods of time, then that does affect all the different systems of your body. So every toxic thought is as real as COVID.
Oh, wow. So I was going to say, Dr. Leaf, if that's what's happening in our brain, which if you guys are listening to this, it looks like this, almost like this monster. It's this blackened, something like from a horror movie.
Yeah.
So what is that doing to our digestion, to our fertility, to our inflammation levels in our body? I imagine if we're having all these, the word toxin, toxic thoughts, it's having a ripple effect and affecting our bodily systems. What starts as thoughts?
Excellent question. So that thought is in that toxic tree in the brain. It's also in the body. So this thought has 3 places that it's going to be. And that thought is going to be in the brain as a tree. In the body, it's going to be in every cell. Every cell forms a different system. So your gut stores that memory from childhood. So does your heart. So does your lungs. So does your skin.
Every single cell?
Every immune cell. Every single cell.
It just goes through every cell in the body.
It's in every cell of the body. Every single cell of the body contains a part of that memory. So when you have blood circulating through your body, it's carrying memory through your body. It's very complex. So your body and your brain. So if you think of it, it's easy that everyone focuses so much on the brain. We forget about the brain and the body. As it's forming in the brain in these tree networks, that's sending a direct connection to every part of your body. So your gut has got more cells than the spinal cord. Your heart has a brain. Every cell is intelligent. So we always talk about the brain as being the center of intelligence. It's not. Your brain is part of your body. Each part of your body plays a different role.
What do you think about when different organs are said to correspond to different energies, like anger is the liver in traditional Chinese medicine, or when people get breast cancer, it's said to be, disharmony of the heart chakra. What do you think about Eastern philosophy over, your research?
I believe that we've got to blend East and West. And we've got to blend ancient and modern. And that's what I try and do with my work. So there's the terminology that's been used in each of the different traditions is all kind of saying, each contributing a hugely important thing. I believe what's happening when we talk about the liver, the certain energy in the liver and the heart, nothing works in isolation. So where it may show up more than others is potentially that could be because it's a certain type of energy and there's frequencies in every single thing emits energy. That's Einstein's work. If you're alive, it emits energy. So your liver, because of the density, for example, will emit a certain energy frequency. And our brain emits certain energy frequency. You pick that up with a QEEG. EKG picks up the heart frequency. So when we have any kind of toxic thought in the brain, it's also going to be in the heart, or it's going to be in the liver, and it's going to be in the gut. So each of those will generate different frequencies. Now, all of us are unique. So I'm very careful of saying, if you have X type of experience, it's going to affect your liver. I think that's dangerous. That's dangerous to say. What we do know is that the different parts of your body are going to respond to the energy coming in. So if I've got a toxic thought, it's in the brain as a tree, it's in the body as changes in the cell, but it's also, and we haven't spoken about this, but it relates to this question, it's also in a gravitational field around your body and through your body. So imagine a cloud that is round and through, this cloud that penetrates. That's your mind. Okay, there's your brain, there's your body, there's your mind, all throughout. Now, that mind is energy frequencies, it's gravitational fields, it's electromagnetic light forces, it's the work that Einstein did with photoelectric effect. All of that is the physics side of the body, of the mind. And it's pushing that energy through the body. If you look at a podcast and you look at the little lines of the podcast, that's a great analogy for what does a memory look like in the body, in the mind? In the brain, it looks like a tree. In the body, it's a change in the actual internal structure of the cell and on the DNA. Wow. And in the mind, it's like a gravitational field. If it's a healthy memory, something that's positive and uplifting and constructive, and it's repairing and growing, that kind of stuff where I'm learning, etc., then it's going to be a nice field. If it's something that's toxic, painful, abuse, etc., trauma, it's going to be a very jagged thing. So if I've got a jagged memory in my brain, I've got every cell of my body's got a level of that little jaggedness in it. And then I've also got it in the gravitational fields of my mind. So now that's collectively going to hit our areas in our body. And then the liver, for example, because of its density, emits a certain type of frequency that's slightly different to somewhere else. So then maybe the liver is going to pick up that frequency maybe quicker than the heart, or for example's sake, for whatever that may be. So we may get a level of response. So I do not think it's as linear as what they make it, but the principle is absolutely correct. The principle is understanding the embodiment of memory and understanding the brain as part of the body and moving away from this thing that the brain, I'm a neuroscientist and I'm telling you that the brain is not the center of control. It's part of the whole control center. The mind is actually the center of control. And if we don't manage our mind, which is what you're teaching in yoga, you're teaching people to a certain extent to manage their mind, because you're teaching them to learn to focus onto the physical as opposed to the distractions of the external. And that practice teaches people to then learn to do that as they go into their life. But it isn't sustainable unless you manage to manage everything. So you've got to use, I always talk about meditation, breathing, absolutely essential for brain preparation and body preparation. But you have to do that. Plus, you have to do the work of dealing with the memory from childhood, the patterns showing up in your life, how you're responding in your relationship. What are you doing? How are you functioning? How you function is influenced by experiences that you've had. And so therefore, if you're not happy with how you're functioning, which is your feelings and your behaviors and your bodily symptoms and your perspective, if you're not happy with that, if it's disrupting your work life, your personal life, your peace, your job, your relationships, then that's not who you are. It's not your wisdom. It's coming because of something. So that means you need to do mind management work. Start with meditation to prepare your body because it's hard work. Then you have to do the actual hectic, non-conscious and conscious cognitive work of finding out the because of why is there this pattern.
Yes.
And that's the neurocycle that I've developed. The neurocycle is the system. You can put all kinds of techniques into that system, but it's a system for how do I find these and how do I deconstruct them and reconstruct them into something that's healthy that I can live with. Doesn't mean I forget what happened to me, but I change what it looks like in my brain, in my body, in the cells, and in those little fields.
Yes.
And so that's the whole package. So meditation, what you're teaching in yoga, is basically very important brain preparation for being able to do mind work more effectively.
I'll say when I talk about yogic science, it really is meditation and focus. I don't really do the asanas anymore, Dr. Leaf. I used to, and then it started to get much more in here because I learned, oh wow, out of 196 asanas, 196 sutras, really 3 are only talking about the poses. So as I got deeper and deeper into the yogic science, it was really about focusing your energy, getting in, going deeper into meditation. And what I found is afterwards, that period after I meditate and I started journaling and reflecting in that stillness, I could see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, because you tapped into your inner wisdom.
Yes, there's patterns. Like, why does this bother me so much? Why does it bother me so much if someone sort of tells me how it is? Because it triggers something like, oh, I don't feel seen, something from my childhood. Yes. So exactly what you're saying, it prepares, I think, that stillness and just creating that introspection, which Yogananda, the great guru who brought yoga from the East to the West, says introspection is the greatest agent of progress. Because if we don't see our patterns, as you're saying, then we don't really know that we're being affected by our memories.
Well, exactly. And we also have so much, the narrative of the current narrative is one of, if you feel an emotion, it's an illness, you have a brain disease, you've got some kind of mental health disorder. Terrible psychiatric message, terrible mental health message. And I talk about that in my book, because that doesn't encourage introspection. That actually encourages, it's a hopelessness. Introspection is one of, hey, I've made of wisdom. It's my inner core. And yoga and the neurocycle that really teaches you how to tap into your non-conscious mind. And I don't know if you know much about the non-conscious mind. You know about it from your training, but you may not have known the terminology and the science. But when you tap into your non-conscious mind, you're learning to tap into your wisdom. And we've got so busy with the distractions of the world that we stay in our messy mind. And there's nothing wrong with a messy mind, because the messy mind is the experimental mind. But the messy mind cannot just function alone. It's got to function with the wise mind. So the way we structured is to learn, everything's uncertain. You don't know, you can't control events and circumstances. You don't know exactly, you had an idea of what this interview would entail because you've read my book or you know a bit about me or whatever, but you didn't know exactly what we were going to talk about, even though you have questions and you've prepared because of the uncertainty of life. You don't know exactly what's going to come from here. You can predict with a 70% accuracy in certain situations. My point, you cannot control events, you cannot control circumstances, you cannot control people. The only thing we have control in the past, the only thing you can control is how you manage what you've gone through. And it's the mind management. And that starts with being aware. And awareness starts with learning to tune into your wisdom. And then awareness grows. It's got different levels, as you and I both know. It's going to be an initial awareness of that pattern, and then training yourself to tune into that awareness and go down deep. Now, in today's world, we are quite well trained with all the wellness movement in having a level of awareness of our body. There's so much movement especially in the last 20 years in this direction. There's so much more, whereas 40 years ago, it was just kind of beginning. But at the same time, we've also gone backwards because we're now taking everything back to the brain, and the brain made me do it. The brain can't do anything without the mind. So if we just say that you've got to look at the organ, like some doctors will say, if you want to understand mental health, you've got to look at the organ of mental health. This is not the organ of mental health. This is part of the body, and holistically that is driven by the mind, and it all has different roles to play.
The liver, the heart. Yes,
exactly. And that, just because the brain is complicated, so is every cell of the body. I mean, look at every cell of the body. They're so complicated. Just a membrane on a cell, the intelligence in the membrane of a cell is phenomenal. And it's not any more intelligent than all the cells put together in the brain. It's just different types of cells making different organs, all working together collectively with the mind to be able to function. And what we want to do is we want to learn to tap into our inner wisdom that is stored in the physical, because that is how we experience life. We need a brain and a body for the mind to be able to experience and express. So that's why if we look at how we're expressing ourselves, we can track it back and work with our brain and our body to find out what happened in our life. And then we can reconstruct that.
Wow. Dr. Lee, I have so many questions. Going back to when you're talking about this field, this gravitational field all around us, you said it's going through the cells. Dr. David Hawkins, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but a couple of decades ago, he attempted to put some sort of measurement on vibrations. And we say we can feel energy from people. Some people you're drawn to them. Some people you're like, whoa, you want to get away from them. Does this relate to this gravitational field you're talking about? Let's say someone has a lot of those erratic memories, negative, toxic memories. And so it comes through in their speech. It comes through in their presence. It can be felt by other people.
Absolutely. And, that's Einstein's work in the 1920s. He won the Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect in 1915. And he started this kind of, not just him alone, but him and his colleagues started talking about how we generate these photons. So it's literally, let's look at it like this. You've got this cloud around you. We know from recent research on gravitational fields that we don't float because of gravity, but recent research is showing that we've actually got unique gravitational fields around us, because gravitational fields got to do with the electromagnetic effect. And it's like we have every person's brain and body is a unique kind of structure that creates its own unique electromagnetic field. And that's why you are different to me and why everyone's different to each other. What's very interesting about this is that manifests in our structure, and our structure is designed to suit our gravitational field, but it means that I can do something that you can't do, and you can do something that I can't do. So what's beautiful about this is that we are designed to enhance each other, because it's not that I have failings, and I will come to that in a moment. It's just that we're different. So I can't do everything, nor can you. So that relates to the concept of enhancement and the need for deep, meaningful connection. So as humans, we recognize the beauty in what you can do, honor that, build that, and you do it in me, etc. Then we enhance each other, and my intelligence and my wisdom grows because I'm learning from you and I'm seeing the world in a different way. Now, that means that competition doesn't actually exist, or shouldn't, because competition means that I'm not recognizing, it means I'm threatened and I have to get what that person has, or I've got to be better. You don't. It's been a very destructive force. That kind of competition has been very destructive to humanity. When we recognize that you can contribute something that I can't contribute, and by your contribution I'm enhanced and my intelligence is, that changes the picture. So now that's the foundation. So coming to the impact we have on each other, if I have a toxic experience or I have a toxic thought about someone, and I've built this in this relationship because of whatever trigger in the past, I have that in my brain, I have the change in my cells, I have these little fields in the gravitational fields. This combination generates a photoelectric effect. It's like shooting little photons. So right now, even though we're separated by camera, because we are in a discussion, we're in a relationship, there's no space or time dimension between in the quantum world. So quantum physics-wise, your photons are hitting mine are hitting yours. And because we're in a healthy conversation, there's a bond that's forming. It's healthy. But let's say that we didn't like each other, or let's say that we were wary of each other. Let's say that there was competition between us. We would feel very differently. We would feel threatened by each other. And that threat is coming from a distortion in the brain, and it generates a field. So those photons that are coming out feel like that. So if it's
actually distorting we have a core
field. Yeah, that's it.
We have
that.
Yeah, you said, Dr. Lee, we have our our unique imprint that is kind of there. It's never going to fully go away. But when we have these toxic thoughts, it makes our imprint more jagged temporarily. Exactly. But over time, it can stay that way.
Exactly, right? Exactly like that. So think of it's exactly like that. So this field, and you've got all the core fields. The perfection of you is always there, but it's not. It's going to be clouded by toxicity, unmanaged toxicity.
Wow.
So you're going to have, and then that then generates out to other people. So it starts with a lot of the anger that, or the toxicity we feel from other people is coming from the toxicity that they have towards themselves.
Exactly.
So they're the inner critic, they're not liking themselves. And because of that, they lash out, and then you feel that. So when you go into a room and someone, you feel like there's something, they're smiling, but there's
yes. They can say the nice things, but you just feel that.
So that's the photons. Those are actual photons, because in their mind, when they saw you, something triggered something from somewhere, because every experience brings up existing networks of memories inside thought trees. So every few seconds, 5 to 6 to 7 of these things are popping up all the time. So every minute of our conversation is informed by my words coming in, your conversation back, but your conversation back is informed by these trees popping up. Hopefully it's all good trees, and mine too. So in other words, every moment that you experience something is colored by what you already have experienced. And so anything that's related is triggered, and your non-conscious mind, which operates 24/7, is searching for anything to help you understand. And what it's looking for is the unique wisdom, the clean cloud, for want of a better word. But sometimes there's all these blocks on the way, all these little fields in the way, and those come up. So then you look at the situation like this. So now, as a child, something happened. There's this memory. You meet someone, and this is triggered.
Yes.
And then you look at that person differently. This generates a field. This then influences that interrelationship. So more is added to this. It's more toxic. So the smile is there, but this is what you're feeling from the brain and from the body and from the gravitational field.
How do we heal those, Dr. Leaf? I'm sure that's what all your books go into this, but in a very simplistic sense or general sense, so someone could take away. How do we heal those really unhealthy memories that make us feel that jagged, the
brokenness?
Yeah, the brokenness, the gravitational, the separation between another human being.
The way we do it is to basically increase our self-regulation. So as a scientist, I wanted to see, that's the big picture, self-regulation. I wanted to see how we change this. So our conscious mind is awake when we're awake. Our non-conscious, N-O-N, not unconscious. Unconscious when you're knocked out or have an anesthetic. So you get your conscious mind, your subconscious, and your non-conscious. The conscious is when you're awake. The subconscious is the bridge between the conscious mind and the non-conscious. The non-conscious, N-O-N, very few people talk about the non-conscious, and that's a huge problem, because the non-conscious is what you're actually learning about as a yoga teacher and all the training you've done. When psychologists are talking, they often say the unconscious and the subconscious. They're missing this,
right,
the biggest part of us. So every single experience you ever have had, and everything about your core wired for love wisdom, you, is in the non-conscious mind. It manifests in the brain, body, and these fields, and it's unique to you. The non-conscious mind works 24/7, and in it is a core wisdom, and then all the experiences on the outside. So imagine the core beautiful cloud, and then all the little black vibrations or something, just to give people a nice white cloud and then little black vibrations. Inside the brain, the core is a beautiful green forest, a beautiful rich green forest, but around it there's all these things of experiences. So what we want to do, and what you teach people to do with yoga, is to try and tap into this part and the white cloud, and to get through the black stuff, and to get through the toxic stuff and the jagged fields, and to tap into the inner core wisdom. When we do that, then we can stay in a place of safety, and we can fix all the jaggedy things and toxic trees and all that stuff. So that requires self-regulation. And we as humans can consciously self-regulate, which means watching what we are thinking, feeling, and choosing about in response to incoming information, like our conversation, and watching how the impact of our words, our texts, our emails, our conversations, or whatever we do, the impact on ourselves and on other people and in life. So that self-regulating process, we can do, listen to this, this always blows people's minds. You can do that every 10 seconds.
Wow.
You can be consciously, deliberately monitoring how you are responding, your thinking, feeling, choosing, and how other people are responding to you, and how your impact of your words, like even writing an email and looking at how you've written it and evaluating that. You can do that every 10 seconds.
And if it's not good, Dr. Leaf, you come back to center, you shift.
You shift. So if you can't change what you're not aware of. So what we do with all the distractions of life is that we just go. We just go. So we become reactive instead of responsive. Self-regulation teaches you to be responsive. It teaches me in the midst of my go, 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 I realize, oh, I just snapped at my husband, or I just thought a bad thought about this person, or I got totally irritated with that, or I just wrote a really ugly email, or I just made a really bad decision. It's awareness and immediately saying, that's okay. I accept the messiness. It's part of it. The uncertainty of life, the unexpected. I was put on the spot. My emotions were triggered. I triggered this thing. This is heavy. It's weighty. The leaves on this are heavy and weighty. They blocked my thinking for a moment. I made a mess.
Yes.
That is okay. That is
Yes.
okay. It's fine. It's not who you are. You're showing up like that because of. That's really key in how you become aware, is what the picture I've just painted. It's very key that we are accepting of the fact that I was in that moment and that wasn't the truth. That was just my response. But why did I respond like that? Is this a pattern? Do I do this all the time? Actually, I'm doing this a lot in my life. Okay, I need to find a dedicated time for 7 to 15 to 45 minutes max every day for 63 days to work out the source of the pattern. And so that's the kind of conversation we need to have with ourselves every day. If I do something in all day long, we need to be watching how we are responding.
What if we see the source, Dr. Leaf? We're like, oh, I know it came from this childhood pattern, but then you still play it out.
Then the reason we still play it out is that we haven't sat down and rewired it. And the rewiring takes the rewiring in our brain and our body. When people talk about rewiring, they always think it's just neural networks, but there's neural networks throughout your entire body. So when we talk about rewiring, we're talking about rewiring the brain and the body and the fields. Okay, and that takes cycles of 63 days, not 21. 21 is a myth. That was a neurosurgeon talking about how the stem cells work and nothing to do with habit formation. Yet it's become one of the biggest conversations around habits. It takes minimum of 9 weeks to completely get to the point where I can find the source of my pattern and change it. We're pretty good at getting to the source of our patterns. It's hard, and we can get there, and everyone gets that. That's what therapy is about. That's what spending time with myself is about, and introspecting. We get that. But then, as you so rightly said, now I know, and this is now where I want to be. So let me just find, I have a little tree over here. Here we go. Where's my little one gone? Oh, I just dropped something here.
I love all the props.
I know. I have so many props here and I can't find this little one that I need. I think it fell. Never mind. Okay, so
when you're looking for that, Dr.
Got
Lee,
it. Found it.
Rewiring, yes. Is in terms of, and I know your books go deep into this, but is it affirmations, new patterns, self-regulating, somatic work?
Those are all techniques that fit into step 5. So everything you've said, you can do any of those, any combination you want. So any level of affirmation, somatic work, all of that fits into step 5. So what I've developed is a system, not a technique, it's a system. Into that system, you can pack whatever works for you. There's so many options out there. Different types of meditation, different types of breathing, different types of CBT techniques, ACT, there are a million, visualization, beautiful exercises.
Tapping, all sorts of
tapping, havening. There's so many different things, but things like tapping and havening and breathing and meditation would be brain preparation. And that could fit into brain preparation and could also be an action step. So essentially what we're talking about with rewiring, and I'll come back to this, what you've just commented on now, is that we are changing the pattern. Let me just backtrack. You said, I know the cause. I know that's how I should operate, but I'm still doing this.
Yes.
Okay. So you found this thing and it's up and you've landed the plane in the forest at this tree, but it's still there. You haven't dug it out yet. So you have to do the work of tracing from the top. The only way to reconstruct this thing is to look at this part, which is your interpretation, how you think, feel, and choose about something that happened, about that cause. So you can't go straight to the cause and just eliminate it. You have to see, how did you view that? So you go from the pattern to the signals of the pattern to the interpretation. How do I see myself? That inner critic, that interpretation, how you're thinking, feeling, and choosing about yourself. And then why did I do that? What was the processing I did, down to the actual, then the root cause. As you go through that, that's a 5-step process. That's gathering awareness of the pattern and the signals. It's taking time to gather awareness of the interpretation. Then it's reflecting on why, the processing, reflecting, ask, answer, discuss. Then whatever you reflect, you write in 2 stages. Writing to dig deep introspectively to get the brain and body working and find all this stuff and deconstruct. You need to write in 2 stages. The first stage is literally, it's called a metacog. It's where you just put everything down, where you let your unconscious spill over into your conscious mind, let it bubble over. So there's no organization. It's a pattern all over the page. I've got a video on how to do it in my app, Neurocycle app, and then I describe it in the book too. And I've got quite a few of my books talk about the metacog. Phenomenal. One of the most powerful tools in digging deep, but you can't use it alone. You must gather first. Gather awareness, which is gathering, and we can go into the detail of that in a moment. You must then reflect. So it's first gather awareness, then it's reflect, then it's this metacog, messy kind of mind that digging out of the unconscious. Then the next level of writing is a reconceptualization, recheck, where you find patterns and triggers and antidotes and anti-chaos. You start working out, what does this mean and what can I do? And then the 5th step, which is what I mentioned 5th step a moment ago, that is the action. What can I do now? I understand. I've gathered awareness of my pattern. I've gathered awareness of my interpretation. I'm seeing why. I saw the processing. I'm seeing the root why. And I've reconceptualized it. I've reframed it. Now, how do I make that work in my life? What's the action step to make it work? If you haven't gone through that, you haven't unwired this thing. That 5-step process I've just described, if you do that daily, a little bit every day, by more or less 21 days, you would have turned this thing upside down, dug it out. Think of each day digging the sand away from the roots, upended this thing, and energy never disappears in the brain and the body. It just gets transferred. You would have then transferred it over to building this. So this is now, that was the childhood memory. This is now how I want to function. That's how the childhood memory is affecting me, but now this is how I want to be. Now comes to the point that you made. I know the cause, but I've done something very constructive. I've actually reconceptualized. I've built a new tree. So I haven't changed what's happened, but I've changed how I'm seeing it. So the neglect, the neglect, I'm bad, my mother doesn't love me enough, my mother wasn't there. You've now changed it into, you've gone back to the inner child as an adult and said, she did her best. It's okay. She did her best, but it made you feel like this. I validate your feelings. This is very important. That interpretation is not the truth. You are valuable. You are important enough to pay attention to. So you do have value. So that's what this is now turned into. I've just given a very quick summary.
Your mental health is and should be a priority. I learned this from my friend, Dr. Daniel Amen, who is a renowned psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and founder of Amen Clinics. The Amen Clinics are unique because they use a comprehensive and holistic approach, including brain SPECT imaging, to treat mental health issues. I visited an Amen clinic and seen Dr. Amen in action, and I was able to see for myself how brain scans show that many mental health conditions, such as ADD, anxiety, and depression, are often not caused by just one thing. That's why giving everyone the same treatment will never work. So you can get a treatment plan that's targeted to your needs. I love that the doctors at Amen Clinics use natural therapies wherever possible. To find out how you can change your brain and change your life, visit amenclinics.com/DrLeaf. If you book, you'll get 10% off an evaluation when you use the promo code DrLeaf10 at checkout. The link and offer details will also be in the show notes.
Of that. So now this, though, is not strong enough. Look how small it is.
Yeah, you're still getting triggered, Dr. Leaf. You're still feeling that, like you're seeing when someone says things.
There's a chasm between how you were, which is now gone. It's this, but you still, because your memory, the thought has been changed, but it's inside you. It's different. It's been reconceptualized. So you don't ever forget what happened. But now you're saying, you said the word yourself. My mother did her best. That's where she was at in her. So, but as a child, you didn't know that. So you didn't even know how to verbalize it. It was just, I'm not good enough. The interpretation. So all this part of the tree here interpreted the experience as you being not good enough or whatever, or not worthy of time or whatever. We all have our own language around what the neglect looked like. This now is, it was neglect, but it wasn't neglect that was intentional. It was, my mom was busy. She was doing her best she could, whatever. You've reframed it, but you still remember that it happened, but you've changed it. But this is going to be triggered quite rightly until I make this bigger. I have to spend at least another 42 days, at least every day for at least 5 minutes, working on what this should look like in my life. I've got to grow this thing. So by 42 days, this must become that. I've got to give it more energy. This has got to compete with trillions of other experiences in your life. So if you don't give this energy, it's drowned out by all the other trees. I mean, look how many trees I've got here. in my hands. I can't even see it. I can't even see the little one.
That little one, Dr. Leaf, you got to feed it. Are you talking about visualizing, or again,
the same 5 steps, same 5 steps where you, every day you go through, you gather awareness. Where am I at today? Okay. Reflect a little bit more. Do a little bit more of the 2 steps of writing and action, and then that 5th step, the active read. So it's the same 5 steps that you did for the first 21 days. The first 21 days, you take 15 to 45 minutes. So you do it in more depth. And each day, you don't solve it all each day. You just do it's a little bit each day. Same 5 steps, but now you're doing it quicker. Now we know the cause, we know the direction. Now we're developing that direction. So where am I at today? Where do I want to be by tomorrow? What do I want to learn today? So it's the same 5 steps, because that 5 steps is how you basically are changing the memories inside the thought. You are giving it energy. Your mind is driving what you want this to play out like in your future. So you do that every day. By day 42, it looks like this. Very big change. By day 63, you're looking like this. Now, this can compete with all the other thoughts in your head. Now, when I'm triggered by that feeling of neglect in the relationship, when someone does something that was similar to what your mom did, and intentionally, that's not going to drive, oh gosh, I'm useless, and affect you, and you're going to send out the wrong energy vibes and maybe have an argument or withdraw in the relationship or whatever. You're now going to remember, that's how I was, but this is this. I am worthy. That's not a whatever. But this has got energy now. See, I've changed all the memories. I've reconceptualized them. So I've changed it, but now I've put 63 days in. So people don't change because they don't spend long enough, because they don't know this timing, which is why I do what I do. That's why I've done the Neurocycle app, which is done in 63 days, where you can take whatever you're working on and you can take it through the proper timing, where I've now changed not only the trees in my brain, but I've changed the cytoskeleton inside my body. I've changed, inside every cell of my body.
If you're consistent in the work.
Consistent change. It takes at least 6. And sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, Kimberley, but it could take more than one cycle. I've had patients who've had such complex trauma that they've spent 2-3 years, which is 22, 30, because if you do 63-day cycles, it's 11 a year. So what often happens with complex trauma is in the first cycle, you only find this part. Then another cycle, you find that part. Then another cycle, you find that part. And then you start seeing all the areas that it's invaded. And that takes time. So there's no time limit. There's no cookie cutter. What's fixed is how long, what are the cycles for rewiring the neural networks in your brain and your body. It's cycles of 63 days. Something's happening at each point. The science is in the book. When you do it in those cycles, do as many as you need until you feel the freedom and you're not being triggered. Or that when you are triggered, the trigger doesn't trigger you actually anymore. It's just a reminder. It's not a trigger anymore. Triggers mean you fire. This is that happens. I used to get mad about that. I used to this or whatever. Now it's just, I used to. This is how I am.
Powerful.
There's a sense of peace.
But Dr. Leaf, most people are not struggle along. So let's say they go for 20 days and then you have an incident, or let's say you go backwards or you take some steps back. Do you reset at day 1? Because people may be listening to this and thinking, oh man, 63 is a long time to be right on track with this program. Do I have to start at day 1 anytime I get re-triggered or whatever it is?
No, not at all, because that re-triggering is progress. That increase in anxiety is progress. Any change is progress. So what I've done for you is I've done the research to track if you move through this cycle, your brain is you're making changes, but the changes you make are bringing things up from your unconscious that you suppressed for years. And when you start seeing stuff in your life, it's shocking to the body. That's where yoga is fantastic, to go and work out that extra energy, because when you suddenly have a memory stimulated, it makes you feel awful. And that's where I always say, then that's where you really need something physical to channel that energy into. So go do your yoga workout or your Orange Theory workout, or dance or scream or sing or something, because you've got this energy that needs to come out volcanic style. But that's all progress. I've had some patients who did this and then they got stuck in a depression where they couldn't get out of bed or couldn't get off the couch for 2 weeks. That's progress. Now, normally you would think, I'm going backwards. No, it's progress. Any change is progress. In my book, I've got a case study, and I selected that. There's 2 case studies. And the one case study is of one of the subjects who was so depressed. They actually said identity was depression. Now, you can't have depression. Depression is not it's not like cancer or diabetes. Depression is an emotional warning signal filled with messages. You know, as a yoga teacher, that the Eastern philosophy teaches that embrace any emotion because it's a messenger. It's not something that you need to be scared of, because when you look at it, you will see something that's going to help you grow. In the West, what we say is that, oh, that's a disease. You're depressed. You've got a clinical diagnosis and treatment cure, and that's drugs and maybe a bit of CBT done in the wrong phasing. Now, there's nothing wrong with CBT if you use the technique at step 5, but if you use CBT and skip out steps 1 through 4, it's not going to change the brain and the body. So then they become a temporary fix and people fall back. That's how they use meditation too. If you don't use meditation within a whole package, you're going to meditate, you're going to learn over time, certainly to be less distracted and more focused, but you're not going to fix the childhood trauma. You're not going to fix the marriage trauma, the work trauma, the COVID trauma, or whatever, because you have to repackage that. You have to change that trigger that's inside of you into something that you control. This is in your unconscious mind, creating tremendous brain damage, creating damage to every cell of your body. Over time, these accumulate and increase your vulnerability to disease by 35 to 98%. We don't want these. We want to get rid of these. So your mind, brain, and body know that. So your mind, brain, and body train you to, not train you, your mind, brain, and body send you signals. And those signals come from the unconscious mind, which works 24/7, through the subconscious, which is the bridge, into the conscious mind. What do they feel like? Emotions. That's what they feel like. The emotions you feel are signals. The pain in your body, that's what it feels like. So there's 4 signals. These, when this happens, you'll feel it through emotions. You'll feel it through how your body feels, because remember, it's in your cells too. That's where yoga really teaches you to tune into your body. You'll see it in your behaviors. How are you functioning in your relationships? How are you functioning in the way you write an email? I mean, how are you texting? How are you looking at the day as you wake up in the morning? Behaviors, what you're doing, and then perspective. What is your view? Are you waking up and looking at life with I hate life, life sucks, this is never going to work, I'm always a failure? Those are the 4 ways that our body, mind, and brain are telling us a story to say, that's not you, there's something going on. The current psychiatric mental health move says, if you have those 4, if you have depression, if you have weird behaviors, if you have this perspective that life sucks and I want to just die, and you have all this pain in your body, you've got a disease. You do not have a disease. You have a mind issue. You've had an experience. You've had a multitude of experiences that over time have accumulated. Sure, that in your body will over time create medical problems. So thank God for doctors. But that's if you just treat the medical problem and you never sort out the source, which is the narrative that you went through, which is the experience which became a narrative. These are narratives inside of you, which are memories inside thought trees. If you don't fix those, then the medical problem won't resolve. The medication is going to be a temporary fix. The neurofeedback's a temporary fix. The meditation's a temporary fix. Unfortunately, and I'm all for, as you can hear, I'm all for meditation.
Sure.
But you cannot, the research shows, you cannot fix a childhood trauma with meditation. What you will do with meditation is you will learn how to tune into your body, so you'll fix it quicker. You'll get into introspection deeper. You'll get into the wise mind quicker. So meditation and yoga are fantastic ways of training people in really bad states to really get in touch with their inner wisdom. It's really, if I have to give you one big summary of what I see meditation and yoga doing, it's a very efficient and wonderful way of doing that. But it's not enough on its own. You then still have to do that hard work, and no one's telling you how to do it. And not everyone can afford therapy. And if you go to therapy, I'll finish with this. If you go to therapy, it's once or twice a week. What are you going to do with yourself 24/7? You have to mind manage every 10 seconds. So that's what I'm trying to teach people. Not replace the therapy.
I love that.
Not replace the coaching, but it's how do I live with myself every 10 seconds? That's what I'm offering people, is how do I live with myself? With all the stuff now, in the future, in the past, all of it happening together. That's what the neurocycle is.
Well, and there's so many questions I have, Dr. Leaf, but I have to say, how does this play into, you're talking about these thoughts that I love the visual of the toxic thoughts. And, we hear thoughts are things. We talk about visualization. So visualizing the life you want, playing that out, manifesting. Is there anything in your research that supports I imagine with these gravitational fields, when we have these healthy thoughts, when we don't have those jagged patterns, there's more potentially flow, harmony with other people. So opportunities start to open up. So maybe in a scientific sense, it's true when you visualize what you want and you're in more harmony, it is reflected outwardly in your external world.
Absolutely. So visualization is a technique that you would you can use throughout the 5 steps. So you'll see, even if you read the book and you go into the app, you'll see I'll talk about visualization. I give like little mini lessons, and I talk about how visualization, how it opens up the brain and the body literally opens up the brain and the body. When I say open up, it makes these malleable, weakens them. So it makes you it's a great way of becoming conscious of what you are going through. So looking at yourself. So when you picture something, you are changing your vision, mind vision of what is happening. And it helps you to then transform more easily. And a lot of stuff happens inside the brain. So visualization, in the sense of working through an ordered system over time, like the neurocycle over 63 days will work. But if you just say, okay, which is what a lot of people do, I do not like what's going on in my life. I want to be rich, famous, and healthy. And which is, and we laugh, but that's really what we encourage to be in this very capitalistic society. Success is how much money and how great you look, which is really not what success is. Success is
how big your social media followers.
Yeah, exactly. It's inner peace. Do you have peace in the midst of chaos?
Exactly.
Then you're a success. I don't care what everything else looks like. That's where success is. So we've got to get that level of thinking back. But if we have that, what was I saying? If we have that vision of just having that external, what was I? So I wanted to make a point there.
About visualization.
Visualization. Okay, Thank you. So what we told is take 10 affirmations and say those and visualize yourself. So you want that goal, visualize that car, that house, that body, that whatever, see yourself there. And that in itself is not a harmful thing. I mean, the picturing of that, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It does a lot of good in your brain. But then people think that's it. And that's the problem. People think, okay, well, I don't have to deal with this. I'll just take that pretty visual and I'll put it on. You're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's not going to work.
Well, I was thinking more, Dr. Lee, what about visualizing you being more in peace? Like if you can...
No, but you can do that. But even that, Kimberly, even visualizing being more peace. So please visualize, but visualize in the correct way, at the correct point. If I don't deal with this and I'm just going to use visualization as a Band-Aid, it won't work. If I use affirmations as a Band-Aid, it won't work. But if I use visualization, okay, I'm going to gather awareness and I can see how I'm reacting. Then I use my ability to picture and I see myself in that situation. And then I see myself how I would like to be. So as you work in each of these steps, you can bring visualization as you go through the 5 steps. But I'm working with it as opposed to just slapping on, I want to look like that. So if you just take, I want to see myself at peace, and that's the visual, and there you are at peace. That's not enough. That's the Band-Aid. But if I say, okay, I'm not at peace. I'm totally chaotic. Why? What are my signals? What is that gather awareness, like picking apples in a basket, very specific. Then reflect, ask, answer, discuss, ask, answer, discuss. Write all this as I pointed them out. Each one of those, you can then, at each of those steps, you can build the visualization process in. When you get to step 5, then you've got a more authentic visualization. I'm now not putting a Band-Aid on the wound. I'm actually opening the wound and finding out the source of the wound. And I'm dealing with the wound all the way through. So I'm seeing that interpretation of myself was, I'm useless. Okay, and I look at myself, I stand back and observe myself. As I'm saying this, I don't know if you can visualize and if your audience can visualize. Take your inner critic. What is the thing that you say most about yourself that is critical, like I'm not good enough or whatever it is? I don't know what it is. Now close your eyes and visualize how your face actually looks when you feel like that. Can you see yourself? Now open your eyes and look at this tree and say, okay, that's an interpretation that's not truth. It's making you feel awful. It's having an impact right down to the level of your DNA. Your homocysteine, cortisol, everything's going crazy in this moment that you visualize. So if I just visualize myself happy, it's not going to work, no matter how much I do it. It's still there. I have to say, why is it there? That interpretation, let me reflect and let me objectively and kindly reflect and say, that's not who I am, but I am saying that for a reason. So it's valid. I validate and I honor, and it's sacred how I feel. It's not good for me, but there's a reason. So let me see why. Can you see the difference? Then I'm going to look at why did I develop that in the first place? I'm going to process, reflect, and the two. So the gather awareness is up here. The reflect, and which is the second step, and the metacog and the recheck are down the tree. And then that takes you to the root. And then the active reach is the action. Okay, now I know. Now I can say, all right, the rest of today, every time that inner critic comes up that says whatever you just pictured now I'm ready to say, actually, that's not the truth. The truth is, and then see yourself in that different way. So now, can you see that's the difference? You're just stepping on a Band-Aid. This will never go away. I'm actually deconstructing. I'm taking all the wind out of the sails of this one, and I'm building it into this. And once I've got this, then I grow this thing so that this now doesn't leak. This can come back again if I don't grow this. then this can come back.
No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is more than just about getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So, what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/Dr. Leaf. That's chime.com/Dr. Leaf. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp of Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on payer. The link and details will be in the show notes.
It almost feels like, Dr. Leaf, you're putting all this amazing science on, like shadow work or what Carl Jung talked about.
Oh, Carl Jung's fantastic. And even Freud's early days when Freud was talking,
yes,
when he operated as a neurologist before he went into trying to please people and make money out of the rich, which is, with rich people and then the hysteria. And his initial work was phenomenal. I love Freud's initial work, but his later work is, it was messed up.
Direction.
Carl Jung really was fantastic in the non-conscious mind. He of all the older sort of psychologists, etc., had one of the best insights into the non-conscious mind. There's very few that I have found. And then there's a couple of other, Aaron Ajad is another one. No one even really knows about him, but he's a scientist and a philosopher who I really learned a lot about the non-conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand the non-conscious mind, that's when shift occurs. That's why I spend so much time teaching it.
So do you think, Dr. Leaf, the reason people are so triggered by social media, I remember when the whistleblower stuff came out a couple weeks ago.
Yes, Facebook.
Mental health, all these issues with social media is because it's bringing up these shadows or these unhealthy thoughts that people haven't really dealt with.
Absolutely. It's triggering. So think of the field, the cloud with the little black things. So maybe in this part over here, or this part or whatever, that was activated. So you read that and it's activating that, and that little field there has got its toxic tree in there and its representation in the cells, the little representation in every cell. I know it's hard to visualize, but when you pull something up, you're pulling up the field, the brain, and the body at the same time. And that's what's been, and all of that is a visual for all of that is, imagine a massive forest, a huge infinite forest. And that forest, every tree represents an experience you've had. From an experience becomes thoughts, because it's a tree, a thought tree with memories in it. And those memories are information and emotions. You're thinking, feeling, and choosing. This part's interpretation, that's processing, that's source. Okay, so imagine all these trees in this forest, but through the middle is this beautiful strip. It's exquisite. It's perfect. It's perfection. It's absolutely, imagine the most beautiful forest that you can imagine. That's you. That's who you are. That's your wisdom. That's your inner core. That's reflected in your biology. Everything about that and your biology is for survival. You being at peace and surviving and working for you. Your non-conscious mind houses that. Your unconscious mind crosses over the cloud, the brain, and the body. It's the overarching who you are. It then uses the subconscious and the conscious mind to keep you in the safest survival state. Around that forest are all your life experiences. When we've listened to the inner forest, the wisdom of the unconscious mind, we're going to build this. When we've tuned in, we build this. When we don't, we build this. And that's not through. This is a child growing up and who's been abused, or at any stage you trust someone and you're in a relationship and a trauma bond forms because this person, does the whole cycle of trauma bonding. I just did a podcast on trauma bonding. I am totally for the victim. I am never blaming anyone. This is never blame. Love and survival is never blame. Love and survival, love is all about, I'm giving you the knowledge so that you can develop an awareness of what has happened. It's not, some of it is our fault. Some of it we've reacted. But even then, I hate to use the word fault, because if I get mad at you, I'm mad at you for a reason. And it's totally unreasonable that I've been mad at you because I don't even know you. But something maybe that you said, and I'm not mad at you. I'm just using this as an example because it's so ridiculous. But mad at anyone, or you got mad at me or something. There's a reason why you're showing up like that. So I'm telling people, and I hope I can get this through clearly. Someone would say, but you shouldn't be mad. There was no reason. It's your fault. You did this. Forget that. Say, I did. I own it. I own that mess. I got mad. It did hurt you. I take responsibility for the hurt that I've caused, because that was not my intention. Because let me tell you that madness wasn't you. That madness was something that I've gone through. There's a because of behind my me getting mad at you. I'm going to do the work to find that. That's love. That's survival. That's standing in the middle of that forest and looking at that toxic tree. And in doing that, I think, oh, okay, when I was mad, this memory popped up. There it is on that side of the forest. And I'm in the middle of wisdom and I'm looking at that. So the process I've just described enables me to stand in wisdom in the middle of the forest and look at that. If I do what the current world does, or if I just become reactive and I don't deal with that, that madness could grow into getting mad at everyone. And then you get told you have a personality disorder or something, you'll get diagnosed with BPD or something like that, because you haven't ever, now that's your fault. You've got a broken brain and you're a bad person. That's terrible. Meanwhile, that person with those, who's showing those personality disorder things that are hurting other people, and other people deserve to be protected too. You don't have to, we don't have to take stuff from each other. We have to protect ourselves too. I'm not saying that you've just got to take everything, but I'm just saying that you've got to look at the person's behavior. If all of us did this, if everyone looked at everyone else's behavior as a reason, as a because of, and then we wouldn't take it personally, we wouldn't react, we wouldn't fight, we would actually, how can I help you? I see you mad, I see you angry. How can I help you find the because of? That's what I'm trying to teach people. I don't know how to teach it loud enough.
Well, Dr. Leaf, in your work, let's say someone does, like, let's say it's an in-law and they remind you of, your parents, something from your past. And to your point, we have to protect each other. So you can own, sorry, but you really trigger me. Do you think in your work, you should try to maybe minimize contact with that person until you go through these 63 days? So
Absolutely.
You're not inflicting harm on them. Yeah.
I've got another image I'll show you. I did a whole podcast on this. Did a whole podcast on, because there's so much about boundaries that it's almost nauseating.
Healthy
it's
boundaries.
it's just like it's become one of those phrases that people use too often and they don't understand it. So I talk about space instead of boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with boundaries, but the way it's almost gone out of proportion. Here's a little tiny cup. Okay, so when you've got that in-law who's in your face and really upsetting you, there's the issue. It's you consumed. You can't see the wood for the trees. This is just going to trigger issues in between you. It's going to get worse. So what you need to do is create the physical and mental space so that you can start getting healing. Look at I've created space. I'm going to start getting more perspective. I'm going to hit that point at about 21 days. But by the time I get to 63 days, look at this. Same issue, the mother-in-law, whatever. Look at the space I've created. Now I can
great visual.
So I take myself out of the situation as far as you physically and mentally can, and work through why that's triggering you, because there's a reason that the action, and it could just be that they're just plain mean, but that meanness is getting a response from you. So there's something in you that's not resilient enough against that, because they're operating from pain, and you can't see it when you in this cup. Yeah. By the time you've gone through 63 days, you can see that. Doesn't mean you take the abuse. If they still continue,
minimize contact, you get stronger.
You get stronger. So when they come at you in this space, it's not going to affect you anymore, because you know it's coming, and they have to do the work. And you can encourage them to do the work to find out why. But when you don't respond, when you've sorted yourself out and you don't respond in a reactive way, you respond in love, where you actually you're neutralizing, putting water on the fire. Here you're putting fire on fire. Here you're putting water on the fire, and that's how you change it.
So you can say with love, I own this triggers me. I need some space from you. I'm doing work. Let's just minimize contact for 63 days. And if they get this program with Dr. Lee.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And if they don't like that, that's not your problem. Because we know from all the boundary teaching, we know that when you put up a boundary with someone, the biggest thing about boundaries is that they've crossed over into yours. They've tried to jump in the cup with you. And no one can jump in another person's cup unless they're invited. So, you have every right. And that's where you have to understand that any anger that comes from them is because of their hurt. And you just still need the boundary. You need the space. You need the cup. You need that little thing. But you need to get into this one and then eventually into this one. So they have to do the work. And if it means that you don't see them anymore, it means that you do this. You've got to do what's good for you. Otherwise, you will just make them worse, because you're just going to shoot out all those negative photons we spoke about earlier on. You've got to get through the uncomfortable of creating the space, and hopefully they'll see your change and feel your love, and which may be, just you stay at peace in the midst of chaos. When you can stay calm, where you used to freak out maybe, or get upset or cry or whatever, when they see, hey, they're not getting that same reaction. All they're getting from you is love photons. They don't know that's what they are, but that's what they're feeling. That neutralizes. Hopefully that's the prompt for them to pull back and sort out their life. If not, and they don't respect, you have every right to then, if it's affecting your mental health, you just keep that boundary until they've done the work. You don't have to allow them in your life if they haven't done the work. You just have to get yourself right and stay in love towards them.
Oh, beautiful, Dr. Leaf. I mean, there's so many things I want to ask. I have 2 more quick questions. This is so impactful for everyone listening. The work of the Heart Math Institute, talking about
I know their work.
The vibration of the heart. How does that fit into your research?
Well, I've followed their research for years. So your heart has a little mini brain of 40,000 neurons, which you would have heard if you've followed their work, and they talk a lot about that. So so basically, your heart, every part of your body, even your lungs, your gut, everything has intelligence. The neural wiring is everywhere. So it's never just brain; it's brain and body. So in terms of the heart has every part of the body has a role in our mind, and our mind has a role in every part of the body. So when it comes to the heart does some interesting things. It's connected to when you are making a decision, for example, there is a connection literally from the front of the brain over here all the way down into the heart. And as you make a decision, it's an electromagnetic force and a quantum force that moves between the brain and the heart. As you think, feel, choose, the heart becomes very activated in the think, feel, choose. So in that little interim, as you're about to choose, it seems that the heart fires up at that point, and not that everything else isn't firing up. There's response in every part of the body, but it looks like, from the research and the way the research is being done, I'm interpreting complex research, is that the point of choice, the heart releases certain hormones, and one of them is atrial natriuretic factor, ANF, which when it flows through your brain and your body, you get a sense of peace. So when you've made a good decision, there's a firing back into this front part of the brain, the connection between the frontal lobe and the amygdala and the heart. There's this little pathway, and there seems to be a lot of firing in that area as you are choosing. As I talk about it in quantum physics, we talk about it as before the collapsing of the waves. So it's when you're in a state where it's neither you haven't chosen. I talk about sitting on a surfboard just before you fly. You're either going to ride out the wave or you're going to surf the wave. So you're sitting in that state, and it's in that state that the heart seems to become very, very active. And as you choose, the heart releases this hormone if you've chosen in the right way. Yeah. If you've chosen anything in that direction. And I actually have this great image of sitting on a surfboard, and then, if you choose the right thing, then, you ride the wave, whatever, and the atrial natriuretic factor plus 1,400 neurophysiological responses will happen. But if you make the wrong decision, it doesn't get released and you fall back in these jaws. I've got this picture of Jaws with his mouth open. You can get out of Jaws, but just for the analogy.
Yes.
So you're in that state of decision making, superposition. That's the term for it. It's called superposition. And that's where the heart seems to be very active, but it's throughout. The heart is active. Every cell of the heart has every memory that's in your brain. Every cell of the lungs has every memory that's in your brain.
Unbelievable.
It is. And we're carrying in as you got born, the blood from the mother is inside of you, and your blood is in your mother. So you're carrying each other, and that means your mother's blood cells are in you and her memories are in you.
Wow. And not the father necessarily.
Oh, and the father, but that's come through the sperm. So the father has just as much influence. So there's the way that the sperm forms and the vesicles of the sperm sacs and everything through the growth from a child to an adult and then in conception, all of that goes through. So the entire father and mother is in you 4 generations back and probably more. So everything comes through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it comes through on top of your genetic code, but it comes through dormant. So everything from previous generations comes through dormant. It's called epigenetics. But it doesn't, it's only activated if it's nurtured. Activated, it's opened up, or it can be destroyed or activated or stay dormant. So there's 3 options for things that come through the bloodline.
Wow. Dr. Lee,
that's another whole discussion, and I don't have time. I've got another interview.
Very last quick question. I really resonate with your work, Dr. Leaf, about, 10 seconds, 63 days, doing the work, doing real work. I live in LA where it's become quite popular. And I'm sure you've heard about all the different plant medicine modalities.
Yes.
Where people are drinking things and taking things and saying, this replaces my therapy. This is me doing the work. I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I've met people that are, drinking a lot of different things consistently and then saying, it's almost like their spiritual ego increases. Yes. Or like, now I'm a healer. I have this or this. What's going on there? Do you think it's just, creating some sort of harmony in their mind temporarily, or
there's a lot of things going on, and I only have a few seconds left. My producers are in the room, but very quickly, it's once again looking for a quick fix. So whether it's a pill or an activity or something, doing something external, taking something external and putting it inside, but it's not going to be sustainable because you have to do the inside. Everything works inside out. You have to change brain, body. Mind, brain, and body has to change. So all those extra things just add value to the pot, but they're never going to be sustainable. So you can't just drink some plant and think that that's going to fix your trauma, or have go and have mushrooms. I can never say that word. Which will basically help you. Under very controlled conditions, can bring help. It's a psychoactive substance that brings stuff out of the brain and the body, but that's not going to heal you. You have to do the work of once it's up, and it can be a lot for some people. So some of those plants can have very strong psychoactive effects. Things like nothing external, physical putting in is going to solve the problem. It's only going to be part of a solution. The solution has to be mind driven. Without mind, you're kind of wasting your time.
I love that. And it's a very concise, amazing answer for that, Dr. Leaf. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
It's a pleasure.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I hope you found today's podcast interesting and helpful. If you want more tips and help with managing anxiety, depression, and mental health, be sure to visit my website at drleaf.com and to sign up for my weekly newsletter, where I also include a schedule of my speaking events and so much more. And follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look for Dr. Caroline Leaf. Also, I love seeing all your posts on social media about this podcast. I love seeing what resonates with you and what you've learned. So be sure to continue posting and tagging me and letting me know what you think and how these tips worked out for you. And don't forget, leave a review and keep spreading the word about this podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope you learned something new and helpful. Till then, I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf. This podcast represents the opinions of myself and my guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult your healthcare professional for any individual medical questions you may have. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections of errors.